Well, it is top of the hour, so why don't we go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Saturday morning webinar. My name is Judy Feldhausen, and I am joined today by my good friend and co-host, Bob Wischmeier.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. It's great to be here. I'm glad we could get this technical difficulty repaired, so we're ready to go.
We absolutely are. And this is so fun to be able to kind of get out of the product world sometimes and into the educational and self-development world. And Bob and I have really been blessed to be able to talk with the basis of some books that of authors we both like and admire, and really talk about our own journeys and hopefully that it will touch something in you to open up yourself and to become a little bit more aware and cognizant about where you are. And so today's chapter is leverage your gifts and talents. And as always, Les Brown can say a lot in a few words. This is a book that it hasn't been too long ago that he wrote this, but it was after 22 years of not writing anything. Although he was very active and spoke a lot, he didn't do any writing, and was a very prolific writer. But he used those 22 years to really study the human potential and for himself to grow and learn. And he is sharing some of those nuggets with us. And this leverage your gifts and talents, Bob, isn't this an amazing chapter?
It is. I've thought a great deal about this. We all of us, every one of us has a kind of an untapped potential, and we all have passions for things, but what the heck are they? When I was going to mention this, Judy, when I graduated from high school, I had a scholastic scholarship. And after a very short time in college, after the first semester, I just didn't want to be there any longer. And I didn't pursue academia. I was smart enough to, and I had the grades to do that. But that's not where my passion was. Even as a young man, my passion was in the trades. Anything that I could do with my hands, working with my hands, being involved, physically doing things, entrepreneurial things, that's what I wanted to do. And I stepped away early in my life from academia so that I could pursue things that I loved. And I figured that out fairly early in life. Jim Collins talks a lot about, get the right people on the bus and then into the right seat, but you've got to find the right bus to get on to begin with. You know what I mean? You have to try things, be adventurous, be inquisitive, search for new things to do, things that you love to do, Judy. So I think today, let's talk about that for a little while, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing is, we all have talents and we all have gifts that we've been given. And to me, if you're not using those gifts and talents, it really is like Christmas morning and you see all those presents underneath the tree and they're all wrapped up, but you know what? They don't do anyone any good unless you get in there, unless you unwrap them, unless you open them up, and unless you play with them. And really, how much of our talents are we sitting on, are untapped, or maybe that we just have left under the tree and we know what's in that box, but we're not sharing it with the world.
Yeah, I was thinking about this also during the course of the week. I'd had a conversation with one of my boys. I have 5 kids, you guys, and 4 of them are boys. I have a boy named James who lives in Louisville, Kentucky. He is my brightest, sharpest, most passionate child. They're all great. All my kids are great, well educated, and remarkable kids. But James is the wittiest and the sharpest of the kids. And he's stuck in a job where he works 6 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. And he's been doing that for some long time, and he absolutely hates it. He has great passion in other areas. He knows how to do a lot of things, but he's hung up in this horrible job. I don't know. He's got talent like none of the rest of the kids, not like none of the rest of us, in the family. But he's sitting on his, I fear, Judy. I think he's just stuck there.
Yeah, and I think we've all been there, Bob, where we have sat on, just one thing or another thing that we're too scared to either move on, or maybe not know what to do, or sometimes not even recognizing it. And we really want to talk today about identifying your talents and helping all of us to see some possibilities and ways that we can move forward in not only our business but also in our personal lives with our relationships, because I think that's a huge part of it. And I know for me, when I got into being a coach, the coaching school that I went to was really particular about not getting your own life in the coaching calls, because it was all about the client. And I think I was an okay coach, but I found out that when I really brought my stuff into the mix, those stories, those hardships, some of the challenges, that I found that my connections became stronger, and I believe that my clients got more out of what we were working on. And so,
Yeah.
you've taken those talents and keeping them hidden isn't good for anybody.
No, it doesn't help a soul. Well, what I wanted to add to this too, though, with regard to identifying your talents, is one of the things that Les Brown talks about is journaling. I thought it was interesting. He made a couple of comments. He said, listen to your heart and express yourself in it. It helps you gain and maintain an awareness that you need to uncover your gifts and talents. This is when you write things down. It helps you see what keeps coming up and a better view of what you have and haven't tried. Because, you try something and it's not working for you, you can regroup a little bit. I've been journaling, Judy, since Bonnie and I got married 46 years ago. I don't know how many journals I have completely filled up, and I've got a really cool old trunk over here that I keep my journals and stuff in. I've journaled for years. And when I look back, even clear back to when we first got married, at some of my original journal entries, clear back in 1973, I look at those things and the passion as a young man that I had, and I wrote down. And it's interesting to see that they've carried through those little things that were so important to me back then, that I had such a passion for. At age 67, I still feel those things, but I'm doing them now. In other words, it took time for me to work through all of that. But looking back at what you've written in your journal can be extremely helpful.
That's true. And when you're looking at that, and when you're just pondering, to look at really what you're passionate about, it's a great way to identify your talents. Maybe it's something that a hobby or something, but maybe it's a quality. And I want to really get into the idea that it might be just not a specific talent, but it could be one of our qualities. Remember, Bob, when we did the 21-day challenge calls?
Yeah.
And we talked a couple times about the qualities that we possess and some of the characteristics that we have. And I was going through those old notes because I keep my stuff also. And I was going through my old notes, and I was looking at some of the characteristics and qualities we all had on that call. And
Right.
those characteristics and qualities really can help us identify some of the things that we really have a talent for. Things like being positive and being open to new ideas and having integrity and responsibility, being truthful and having positive energies. Those kind of things can help us to identify things that we are really good at. And it might be that we can transfer those obsessions that we have, those qualities and characteristics that we have, into another field. I had a client who was actually an ice skater that didn't think she would ever find another job because she thought she was only good at skating. And when we looked at some of her obsessions and the characteristics and qualities that she had around that, we found that she was actually very detail oriented, very passionate, very had very high concentration and didn't mind repetition. And because of that, she was able to transfer into being an entrepreneur and actually starting a soap business. And you would think the two would have nothing to do with each other, but her qualities and characteristics, her obsessions, were able to transfer over. And of course, she was okay to try something new.
Yeah, when we meet people like that, it just, I don't know, it just makes your heart soar. I was thinking about my daughter Jess. Can I share a thought about my daughter? Do you mind?
No, go ahead. Absolutely.
Just take us with regard to trying new things. When my daughter was got out of high school, she decided, unbeknownst to me, she had never shared this with me, but she decided she was going to go to cosmetology school, which didn't seem like her. She was an athlete, and I don't know, she was a tomboy, and I was a little bit surprised by that. But she said, "Dad, I want to learn a trade. So if I ever get married and have a family and we fall on hard times, I'll have a trade." And I said, "Well, okay, whatever." And so she went off and to cosmetology school and became a licensed cosmetologist. Well, time went by. She married and started to have a family, and they started a business. Her husband did. And when that subprime mortgage industry collapsed in 2008, they went bankrupt. Their mortgage business just tanked. But they didn't waste a second of time when that happened. And she and her husband decided, we'll go back to school. And so in her 30s, with a little baby and two little babies, she decided to go back to school. She wanted to try some new things. And so she finished up, got her bachelor's degree in education. He got a new job. He got his doctorate, and they moved to a new place, started over. And she decided, you know what, I've gone this far with my education. I think I'll see if I can get my master's degree. So she went back to school, got her master's degree. She launched a career in education because that career would allow her to be with her family. It was a whole new arena for Jess. And then she saw an opportunity to run an old bakery in this little Montana heritage community during the summer months. She wasn't a baker, but she saw an opportunity. Hey, she liked doing that. She wanted to try it. She ended up buying the bakery. Now she runs a bakery during the summer months. She decided that it was one of her bucket list items was to run a marathon. Well, Jess is not a natural runner, I don't think, but she ran the Windermere Marathon earlier this year in Spokane, Washington. That's what, it's making a decision that there's something that you want to do. You want to try some new thing, getting a passion for it, and then doing it. Look for it and pursue it. And I love that about her. Trying new things is huge.
It really is. And Les Brown actually talks about how to develop your gifts and talents, and a couple things that you need to do. And you haven't seen this slide, actually. This change in this slide, Bob. But I found this picture, which is our synergy. And I just thought it would be a good thing to put on this slide.
Yeah, I know those people. That's great.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, I think it's important for us to remember too that, all great things come from some measure of risk. Bonnie always says that when you see a man standing on top of a mountain, you can bet he didn't fall there. Then there are mountains to climb, and sometimes you got to just sort of step out of your comfort zone a little bit and begin developing other kinds of gifts, other kinds of talents. And it's just the right thing to do. Bonnie and I, many years ago, I sold a business that I had in Montana, and we had 5 little children and not exactly sure what we were going to do. And we packed up the kids and we moved to North Idaho, back to our farming operation that we owned over here, spent 2 years and did a bunch of work and reinvested our money and got that all done and moved again, went back to Montana and finished raising our children and went into a whole new industry there. And sometimes you have to make changes and move forward in your lives. It's all good. It's all good. And anyway, back to you.
Well, and you're right. It really speaks to being able to make a commitment. And that's the first thing that you need to do when you're really trying to develop those talents, is to make that commitment. Leaving your home is definitely a commitment. Just like this guy on the jumping off of the cliff. I mean, he's making a commitment.
Yeah.
There's
yes,
no
turning
back. There's absolutely no turning back here. And it's not like a halfway kind of thing. It's all or nothing. It doesn't mean that you can't change direction. You can't move in a different way, but it means that when you begin, you really have to believe what you are getting into, and really what is your why and what is important here for who you are and what's inside of you.
One of the things too, with regard to making a commitment that you've got to do, is once you've made that decision, okay, I've got to work on this thing. It's kind of like, again, we were talking a minute ago about the 21-day challenge call that Judy put together for such a long time. When we did that, we made commitments. We wrote things down, little goals. We identified different categories and wrote those things down. But once you've done that, made that commitment that there's something in your life that you want to work on and to build, you've got to create some kind of a regimen that you can work on, being very specific about what you're going to do. Build that up. Write those things down. Okay, if I want to do this, I've got to do this, 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 and this. It really helps. Writing it down, looking at it, having it be a part of your life from day to day makes a huge difference. You have to take certain steps to get you from point A to point B, and that's what personal development's all about, right, Judy?
That is so true, Bob. And you really have to be able to, identify those skills and to work on it. And we talk about reading on a daily basis and read 10 pages of a good book. And it's interesting. In January, I had an accident, and I was really involved in getting healthy. And I stopped reading those books that really have been in my life for many, many years. And I did very, very little reading. I was not at home. I was at my daughter's house. I was surrounded with kids all the time, and had different focus. And I stopped reading. What a difference that made in my focus, in my looking in the future. Even though what I read, I basically have read it before. I understand the concept, and I don't really read a lot of new ideas that I haven't heard, even if it's a new book. It's just put in different words. But just being in that mode, just being reminded of the skills and things that I had to work on, really, I had lost that. And now that I'm back, I feel like I'm back to working and to reading and listening to books on tape, my mobile university, that I feel like I'm working on those skills again, and being able to feel better about where I'm going. And my business has had a reflection on what's been going on.
Yeah, we've watched that, Judy. We're really proud of you too. It's awesome. You made it, and by the way, you made a good comeback from breaking your shoulder up. By that, we were all worried about you for a while there. I wanted to take note too that Dan, you see this picture here, and there's Dan Hammer right there in the front on the right hand side, sitting there in front of Dane. And I was thinking about this when we were putting this together, about how Dan, he made a commitment to what he was going to do with his business. And we've watched over the years as he slowly but surely, piece by piece, day by day, line upon line, if you will, has built his business up. He made a commitment. This is what he was going to do. And by being persistent and understanding who he is, identifying what he needed to do, he's built a really good business. I'm really proud of Dan Hammer and the work that he's done. It's awesome. But so for our call for today, we only have a few more minutes left, but the challenge I would suggest to everybody on the call is to identify a skill or identify a passion that you've got. Think about it. And, what do I need to do, to develop this particular skill that I've identified, or this particular passion that I want to work on, and find help you do that. Like Judy said, books, YouTube. I go to YouTube all the time. I'm constantly looking for ways to do certain things. YouTube has been a really good friend to me. But you've got to begin to pursue these things. So there's your challenge. Identify a skill and work on it. Judy?
Yeah, absolutely. And, no one is going to do it for us. When we're young, we think that our parents are going to solve all of our problems and take care of all of our hurts. And it does happen to a certain age. But there is a time when we need to take responsibility and really step up to the plate. And we are the ones that have to do the identification. We are the ones that have to work on the skills. You can have a mentor or a coach or even a boss telling you things, but it's you that has to do the work. And that really hit home for me after I had let things slide a little bit. It's like nobody's letting things slide except for me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're looking at this picture here. I know everybody in this picture. I'm really enjoying this, but there's Dane in this picture here. You stop and think about what it takes. You look at kids in high school who work hard at athletics, and they do really well in high school, but when they get to the college level, they just can't do it. They can't make it. You have to be a really good athlete to actually go from being a good high school athlete to actually being able to make it in college athletics. It's not an easy transition, and most kids don't do it. But to go from college to the professional level in sports is a huge, huge leap. That really narrows the field down, you know. And you look at Dane, you know, growing up the way that Dane grew up in Northern California in a lumber industry and the timber industry, coming out of there as an athlete, and working his way up. Once he made that commitment that he was going to play professional baseball, there wasn't anything that was going to stop him, and he just kept on doing it and working hard at it. And that's what it's really about: identifying those skills, working on it, and then again finding the right people, surrounding yourself with people. And that's what you have to do in the athletic world as well, with coaching and stuff. I wanted to share a quote, Judy, if I could. This is directly from Les Brown's book. And I need to send this quote to my son. It says, if you hate what you're doing, if you're working every day for a paycheck and nothing more, then you aren't living up to your potential. You aren't living in line with your gifts, and you're not taking advantage of your talents. Instead, you're a circle trying to fit into a square hole, and you're wasting all of your energy trying to fit into a hole that someone else fits into. You need to discover where you fit, where you belong, and what you are meant to do. This is the path to happiness and success. This is the path to living a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I know that that's true, Judy. I know that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. And we really have to look at not only working on ourselves and doing it on our own, but really surrounding ourselves with those positive people, loving people, supportive people that don't tear you down, that you know, don't say, no, you can't, and this isn't going to work, but instead of being able to cheer you on and applaud you when you go ahead and are successful. It does make a difference to have that group. And we are so blessed here with our team that we do support one another. And I always look forward to those times when we can sit around the table, just like in this picture, and you know, have a nice meal and learn about one another, and learn about how successful they are in their business and what they're doing to be successful, so that we can take some of those ideas and thoughts and run with them ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Judy. I remember this evening well. I think this was the Blue Iguana, wasn't it? Is that where we were eating there?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can see, there's an iguana that's up on the right-hand side. That is actually an iguana up on the wall.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great time. Well, thank you guys so much. Judy, any questions anybody has or comments you want to make while we're still on the call, still on the webinar? Love to hear from you.
I want to know, that was in Salt Lake, right?
Yes.
All right.
That was, I think it was like
I wasn't at that table, but
oh, you were breaking up, Tracy.
I was at that convention that year, so
yes.
Wasn't sitting at your table, but
not that night.
Yeah, we've had some great times at those Synergy events. We really have. One night we lost Tammy Hester. Do you remember that?
It might have been that night. No, I don't. That was no.
It's another one. Yeah, we'd walk down to an Italian restaurant and had some salads and whatnot, and then we couldn't find Tammy. That was an interesting night. Walking the streets of Salt Lake, and it was beautiful out though, and we found her finally.
Yeah, actually, she went ahead of us.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other thoughts, you guys, on Les Brown's? If you don't have a copy of this book, seriously, get a copy. Go to Amazon, get a cheap copy, get a used copy. Doesn't matter, but it's a wonderful book. Just a great read.
It is, and it's not big, and the chapters
No.
are small enough. It's not even the 10 pages a day that we want to read in a book. If you just read those, it's about 5 or 6. Great.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Judy. Well, that's it for me. Thank you
Okay.
guys for joining us.
Me too. Thank you, guys. You have a
All
great
right.
week.
Listen, if you can do it, every Monday morning we have a conference call. It's at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Pete and Eva Miller are going to be on the call with us this coming Monday morning. Get a hold of me if you don't know the phone number, but we'd love to have you all join us on the call anytime. So welcome. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Donald, just a quick,
Yes, Donald.
at the
Go ahead.
toward the end of last week's, I shared a book. Did anybody missed it or would like some more information on it? I don't know if you had
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. Give us the name of the book, Donald.
It's called Beat the Heart Attack Gene. Beat
Okay.
the Heart Attack Gene.
Beat the Heart Attack Gene. And who wrote it?
I'm sorry, it's by Bradley Bill, MD, and Amy Deneen, ARNP. Actually, she became a doctor subsequent. And Bob, I heard you shared something about your wife earlier, and this book talks about insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance.
Okay.
And it's a pretty powerful book, if I may suggest. And in here, there are therapies for insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I'll check that out. Thank you, Donald. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donald.
That's
You're
wonderful.
always welcome.
Okay, anything else before we say goodbye?
That's it for me.
Okay,
Thanks, Judy.
awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.